Hey everybody, Mark Edward Lewis here from Cinema Sound. You know, we usually talk about audio things, that's why it's called Cinema Sound, duh. But today we're going to be talking about picture editing, which is like, whoa, why are you talking about picture editing? Well, because everything in post audio is inextricably and indelibly linked to a good or bad picture cut. And if we don't have a good picture cut, if we don't know how, no matter how good your audio is, you're gonna suffer. Your production's gonna suffer, and you're gonna suffer in post too. There are three disciplines that we have to keep in mind when we're doing picture cutting. And I'm gonna go into this because so many of the narrative continuity cuts that we get just really are not up to stuff, especially in the independent world where maybe there isn't a lot of experience or a lot of know-how about cutting specifically. So we're gonna get into these three things so that you can have success with your projects, movies, videos, whatever, and so that your audio can be the best it can be and your audience impact can change lives. Let's roll. We're gonna go through a very basic cut. There's already gonna be an assembly in place, and I'm just gonna take you through some of the basics of the three main disciplines that we need to be sure we're mastering and have in control before we can get ourselves to a great edit. This is footage that Rivkah Raven Wood kindly let us borrow from her production Witch and Ogre, which you can see on YouTube. And it's just raw footage, it's not color corrected, don't worry about the sound, don't worry about anything like that, but we're gonna get into the cut aspect of it. All right, so let's just watch what we've done with it using the three main disciplines, and then we're gonna watch what just a simple assembly will look like, and hopefully you'll be able to discern the difference.
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test? I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh, the Bechdel test. Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Wow, fascinating.
We're failing it.
I don't talk about men that much.
Let's talk about something else so we can pass this test, all right?
So that's what it's like with adding the three elements that we're going to teach you about. Obviously, there's no music, there's no ambiances, there's no sound, so it might feel a little slow, but see what you think about this cut. This would be the rough assembly. I'm just going to drop us in here. Just stuff hacked together. Check it out.
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test? I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that.
Oh,
the Bechdel test. Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
wow, fascinating.
We're failing it.
I don't talk about men that much.
Let's talk about something else so we can pass this test, all right?
And then we're in the same place. So it feels much slower. It feels like we're just kind of wading through what's happening here. And don't get hung up on the content or the cinematography or anything like that. Just we're focusing specifically on the edit. So I'm going to take us now into the timeline. We're in Adobe Premiere Pro and just kind of show you some of the things that we want to deal with. Let me just whip out here we go, a workspace where we can be working. Here's our timeline. We're going to go back to the top here. Awesome. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with how this works, the blue stuff here is the video, and the blue stuff here with green is actually the clean dialogue. We've already cleaned the dialogue, which I strongly suggest you do. Clean all of your dialogue, just like you color correct the general basic grade of your footage before you ever get into the timeline. And with the telecine, we do the same thing, digital telecine with digital audio. All right, so the three disciplines that you want to keep in mind are timing, point of view, and then finally continuity. And most people get that backwards. They want to do continuity first and then worry about timing. Timing has to be first. So in this video, we're going to talk about timing and point of view, and I'll talk about what that is in just a moment. So we're going to take a few minutes and just jump into this. Okay, so we're going to start here.
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
And then to know, the question we always get is, how do we know where the next cut should be? And for me, and for those of us at Cinema Sound, you want it to feel like a regular conversation. How long is the person thinking before they come up with the right answer? And it depends on their character. And as you as an editor can know and assist in the character building by the timing with which actors respond to each other, characters respond to each other. In this case, Tammy is a very meek and mild character who gets cut off all the time by Daisy. And we'll just try that on as something that's fun to do. So when we have block cutting, and by block cutting I mean the video and the audio gets cut together, it's very difficult to create anything more than just very harsh cutting. And we'll show you why in a second. We're going to give you a little tool that will help you with that. But for now, what we want to do is get the audio, the actual audio in the right place. So we just play through and we figure out, gosh, when would she respond?
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
The Bechdel test, right? That's about where it would go. And I just hit stop right there. And we can see that the audio kind of begins here. So we're going to go like this, and we'll jump over, make a cut. We'll get rid of this and then bring this over by selecting the space in between the clips and deleting it.
Test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
That might be a little tight. So we're going to hit the T for me and my key commands, and we're going to move over and then just add a little space.
Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure.
So obviously that's way too long, so we're going to fix this up in timing.
I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test, that's where that probably should go. We're going to move it right to this is the B in the Bechdel part of her voice. We're going to go here.
Heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh.
So she's got an O in there, that's cool, but it's way too long, right? So let's just drag this over to maybe here. We'll sync that up.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh.
That might be a little too tight. Let's see, though, if we go back a ways.
Right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh.
Yeah, we'll add a little bit of space, just dragging everything to the right just a wee bit. And you're like, well, how do you know that? I'm just kind of feeling it. And we're not worrying about the visuals right now so much. What does it look like? Less. What does it sound like first? Because sound is what gives us our pacing.
Test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh. The Bechdel test.
Okay, so we want the Bechdel test to really be on top of her right there. The Bechdel test. We'll select all this. We'll get rid of it. Let's put it together. In fact, we're going to have to chop over this to get her in there.
Oh. The Bechdel test.
We want her to be cutting her off with O. So we're going to hold down, we'll hit T, and we're going to move this so that she's right on top of her.
Oh, the Bechdel test. Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men. Wow, fascinating. We're failing it.
Okay, so, we might cut B-roll into this so that we can get rid of this break right here.
Oh, the Bechdel test. Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men. Wow, fascinating.
And maybe we could cinch this up a little bit too, the well, how fascinating, just a little bit.
They don't talk about men. Wow, fascinating. We're failing it.
And we might give a reaction to Daisy here, so give her a little more space to say, we're failing it. So we're going to drag this over like this.
Wow, fascinating.
We're failing it. Oh, that's about right where it went.
We're failing it. I don't talk about men that much.
Now we can bring this closer. And a lot of people cut to music, and I think that's always a mistake because it gives you a false sense of a good scene. Music always temporarily compresses things, but you don't know if you've got a really good cut unless you listen to it without music. Unless you're doing a montage, obviously, or something.
How fascinating. We're failing it. I don't talk about men that much. Let's talk about something else.
No, obviously we have to cut her off with Daisy on the eye, so we're just going to bring this over. Let's zoom in so we can see what we're doing. The cutoff here.
Not much. Let's talk about something.
Even more, possibly, so it doesn't sound like, community theater.
About men that much. Let's talk about something else so we can pass this test, all right?
Okay, so that's us dropping in. I'm just going to do the front of this scene. That's us dropping this into the right space so that it feels like it's a conversation that might actually happen in the real world, just using audio cues. Let's watch it.
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test? I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh, the Bechdel test. Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men. Wow, fascinating. We're failing it. I don't talk about men that much. Let's talk about something else so we can pass this test, all right?
Okay, this is pretty good except for right here.
Test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test.
She cut her off, so there's a little too much space right here.
Never heard of that.
Bechdel.
I'd rather have heard of Bechdel test. We just wanted to get cut off because that's kind of how Daisy is. So we're going to move this audio so that we don't erase Daisy's. We can just overlap here easily.
Never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to.
Yep.
Test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test.
Cool. And then we're going to bring this together. Now, when we watch the front of this, see if you notice visually now that we've got the audio in the right place.
Failing the Bechdel test right now?
If it flows.
Test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh, the Bechdel test.
See how hard that is to watch? It's just back and forth and you're not sure why. It just feels choppy. It feels like you can't really be with any of the characters. And that's what I see so often. And a lot of times they get the timing of the scene right, but the actual cutting, where the visual cutting part is just so wrong. And this is the second aspect of discipline of editing that you have to keep in mind. Once you get the timing right, then we move to point of view. Well, whose point of view? Well, the audience's point of view, not the actors or anyone else. It's all about the audience. And just like if you were a third party in a conversation, you'd be turning back and forth, looking at somebody or not, depending on when someone else starts a conversation or starts their dialogue, if you will, or when you want to look to somebody for a reaction. You're going to turn and look. And that's what editors, we do, and we create the point of view for the audience. So sometimes and most of the time in real life, you want the cut to happen after the dialogue of the next actor turns, because no third party knows to turn and look right as they start or beforehand, right? That doesn't really work. It's not in real life. It doesn't feel natural. In this case, we are cutting just before the dialogue every time happens, which feels very unnatural and not to mention it's choppy.
Right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. Oh, the Bechdel test.
So even especially when you're trying to cut on top of an actor's dialogue, then you've got big problems. So we want to do what's called an L cut. What the L? We want to do an L cut that allows us to drag out the timing of the visual cut independent of the audio cut. And it changes everything in narrative continuity editing. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Again, point of view. So we start with Daisy.
You know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test.
We wouldn't turn to look to Tammy until after she'd started her line. So let's zoom in. I'm going to hit the R key for roll. I'm going to put it right over the seam of the cut, and I'm going to roll this to just after the first couple of syllables of Tammy here, without moving the audio.
Failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
So we actually cut after she starts talking.
The Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never
That might be a little long, a little far. We'd turn a little bit sooner.
heard of that.
Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard.
Now look how that feels as opposed to how we had it.
Do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard.
I mean, it works. It's certainly correct, but stylistically, it doesn't feel like it flows. And in fact, if we go back to how we had it,
Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test.
we can actually truncate some more time. And the more time we can take out of a scene usually is a good thing. We're just going to hit T. I'm going to select all this and move this over just a bit.
Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test.
Right? So now we can cut in and feel like we're still flowing.
Failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not.
And then we would do the same thing here, because we would obviously not cut to Daisy right away with our point of view. Our heads wouldn't snap that way.
Bechdel test. I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how
That way she can cut off Daisy and it not feel so choppy. What happens next?
to say that.
Now we can maybe cut to her
Say that. Oh, the Bechdel test.
here and be okay, because it's just a reaction. She's not starting to talk right away. We might actually stretch it out just a little bit so that we can stay with Daisy. Just a stylistic choice. Again, going when would I turn my head? Just after she'd
Bechdel
finished.
test. I'm not sure how to say that.
Reaction. Maybe even a little bit more. Then we turn and go, oh, what's she going to look like?
I'm not
What's
sure
it
how
going
to
to be on
say
her
that.
face? Boom.
Oh, the Bechdel test.
Now, obviously, we don't want to cut on her the Bechdel test, because, again, our heads would never snap that way. In fact, what we could do is get the Bechdel test and then cut this out, this time. Remember, we were like, gosh, that's a lot of time there. We can go to the Bechdel test. And then I'm just, because we're going to cut later than we were doing, we were cutting after the dialogue ends as a thematic element, so the viewers aren't going to be confused. We can do all of this, cut this whole thing out, drag it all forward. So now her dialogue, Daisy's dialogue, will begin first.
The Bechdel test, where two or more women are in
And now we've cut that out. Now, of course, we got to deal with something here because
Bechdel test.
she starts saying a line, boo hiss, so we want to get this cut in before she says her line, which means we're going to have to truncate this just a little bit, as well as maybe move her dialogue over just a bit so we don't get the end of her audio cut off.
The Bechdel test, where two or...
In fact, that works better. She cuts her off even
How
more.
to say that? The Bechdel test, where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men. Wow, fascinating.
And we might do the same thing here. Might give her a little more time, just a little bit, because she's not speaking right away.
And they don't talk about men. Wow, fascinating. We're failing it.
Now that's the right place for her to say we are failing it. We got that already from our time, our pacing. But let's see what happens if we try to heal this. Watch what happens. She's already talking before she says this. So we're kind of foobar there. We don't have the footage to be able to make that happen. But what we can do is we do have some footage. And if we zoom in here, let's see how far we can go before. Oh, she's talking pretty far in here. Let's see. Right there, that's where her mouth starts going. And her dialogue starts there. So what we're going to do is do a little time compression, expansion, actually. And we're just going to move this over to here. And we're going to see how far we can change this before it starts getting weird on us. Okay, we're going to move this over like this.
We're failing it.
Okay, maybe 70%. That was 80%. Let's see if we can get away with a little 70%. We're just extending the frames.
We're failing it.
And now let's put it all back together.
Wow, fascinating. We're failing it.
It's not quite where we wanted it, but it's way, way better. In fact, if we go crazy, let's go crazy. It's always, good to go a little crazy, right? Let's make it 50% and see if we see anything weird. Nope, it looks okay to me. It doesn't look too weird, certainly not for a YouTube situation.
Wow, fascinating. We're failing it.
That's actually great.
I don't talk about men.
Okay, we're going to heal this because we don't need that much. We can actually have her start earlier. Now that we've established this kind of L-cut routine, maybe even more, right on top of her dialogue.
We're failing it. I don't talk about men.
And then we'll make this go over here and do our L-cut on her.
We're failing it. I don't talk about men that much.
Yeah, again.
We're failing it. I don't talk
look
about
there
men that
and see what she's saying next.
Let's talk about something else.
And she's obviously cutting her off. We'll roll this over.
Men that much. Let's talk about something else.
A little too far, a little too exciting. Here, like so.
I don't talk about men that much. Let's talk about something else so we can pass this test, all right?
Okay, so now we have a much better feeling, much better timed scene. Very, very simple scene, but you can see how L-cutting and sliding picture across to create an even tighter scene and a point of view where the audience is looking from one to the next in a very, what's the word I want? Natural and when you go to the store, you've got the GMO stuff, and then you've got the organic, natural and organic fashion when you would normally turn your head. Now that's one choice. Another choice is to create a real frenetic feeling and reverse it. So you're cutting away before they're done talking to get someone else's reaction. Oh, it's something, and we'll get into that in a different video. But let's watch this down and see how we do.
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test? I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. The Bechdel test, where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Wow, fascinating.
We're failing it.
I don't talk about men that much.
Let's talk about something else so we can pass this.
Feels much better, right? Now, of course, some of you, the cinematographers, are screaming because they're like, it's just a bunch of wides and mediums. How can you do that? Well, obviously, we would need to fix that. And that comes into both continuity and point of view. But it's a real simple fix. Let's go to Effects Control so that we can see what we're doing here.
Bechdel test.
So we start with the wide, and unfortunately, we don't have any wide footage establishing of Tammy, so we're going to make do with what we have. The next cut
Bechdel test
would obviously need to match her now. So we're going to select this, we're going to select motion, we're going to go to the hand tool, and then we're just going to move this around. After we do a appropriate zoom in, remembering that zooms, in order to not have match cut feelings, are either double or half the focal length. So in this case, it's really easy. 50% more of 100% is the correct thing for us. She's looking camera left, so we want to move her over as much as possible, keeping her eyes on the tic-tac-toe. Let's see how that feels.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say.
Obviously, Tammy is shot way, way, way over here, which is a cool feeling, but I don't have the
Bechdel test.
framing to get Daisy over there. You can see I already have a black bar. We actually have to slide this over a little bit more to establish it, so we're not having black bars. Nobody wants that.
I'm not sure how to say that. The Bechdel test, where two or more.
And what we might do, because this is a long explanation, let's go like this. We're going to go here. We're going to start at 150%, and we're going to position her so she's in the right place. There's motion. We're going to put her back. Actually, what we should do is just go copy and then paste attributes. Boom, now she's in the right place. What we're going to do now is do a little artificial zoom in. We're going to hit scale, enter a keyframe. We're going to go back to the end of this, go back one frame, just so it's a little easier for me. And we're going to do maybe a 8% move, maybe more than that, maybe 10% move.
Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Now, what's wrong with that zoom is that her head's going up. So we also need to do a position situation so that her head stays in relation to where she is in the content of the frame. And we're going to plug ourselves another keyframe, and then we're just going to drop her down, move her over a little bit until we get the edge of the frame once again. So it's a nice move. We keep her eyes in the same plane. Let's see how that feels.
Where two or more women are in a scene.
Oops, she's moving over. Moving over too far. Let's keep her, let's keep her where she was. There we go. She's still moving over a little bit. Let's just slide her over just a slight bit. There. How about now? There we go. That looks nice.
Where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Wow, fascinating.
We're failing it.
I don't talk about men.
Now we'd want this to be that medium because it's a fun little moment. So we're just going to copy, and from here to here, even over the time compressed footage, we'll turn off time remapping. We'll leave opacity and motion. Bang. Now we're in good shape. In fact, we might just zoom in a little bit more, maybe to 170 or so. We'll drop her down, and maybe now we can move her over in line with her friend Tammy, now that we have some zoom in capabilities. We'll copy. We'll paste attributes, turning off time remapping and lumetri color. Don't need that to be pasted again yet. Let's see if it works.
Fascinating.
We're failing it.
I don't talk about men that much.
Let's talk about something else so we can pass this.
And then we'll come back to this again. We'll take this position and paste attributes nice and easily, and we're back here. All right, so now with the framing in the right place.
Say, Tammy, do you know we're failing the Bechdel test right now?
Bechdel test? I've never heard of that.
Bechdel test. I'm not sure how to say that. The Bechdel test, where two or more women are in a scene and they don't talk about men.
Wow, fascinating.
We're failing it.
I don't talk about men that much.
Let's talk about something else so we can pass this test, all right?
So a very simple scene made so much better by L-cutting and focusing on timing and point of view, and then doing a little push and pull on the zoom. So hopefully this has been eventful and useful to you. I'm sort of jumping the tracks, not jumping the shark, jumping the tracks to get an visual editing thing out in Cinema Sound. But the best way to help sound is to make a great cut. And to get some of these elements, the timing, the point of view, and the continuity right is everything for a visual pacing and to create a great scene. With music, is not how we solve cutting. Music should make your cut better, right? So if we get a good response, I'm going to do some more of these examples using the 3 major disciplines of cutting, and hopefully empower you to not only get great sound, but a great production value all around. Come join us on our Facebook page, and you do that by actually signing up for CinemaSound at cinemasound.com, and you'll get all the login information. Until then, we'll see you in the edit bay.